Hi, everyone. It's really good to have you all here. We're having some very exciting subject going on today. I have Dr. Nick Thompson here with me. He's from the UK. He's a holistic vet colleague of mine who, well, we've kind of emailed back and forth. This is the first time that we're actually chatting together, but I found out that he has has the same passion as I do when it comes to healing and health and just beauty and love and everything else. And so we decided to work, have a little interview together, have a little chat together about how we can best heal our animals and the planet and everything else. And so, hi, Dr. Nick. It's so nice
Hi.
to be here.
Odette, it's great to be with you. You've just caught me. I'm in the middle. I'm having a cup of tea, a traditional cup of English tea in the afternoon, which is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's great to share that opportunity with you. I'm just going to switch my mobile down as minimum. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Listen, thank you so much for inviting me. Lots of people joining, lots of people wanting to share the conversation, and it's wonderful to be here. Good. Yeah.
So before we get started, for those of you who are on Zoom, feel free to post your questions in the Q&A. There's a Q&A thing at the bottom of your screen. So put your questions in there. If you want to chat with each other, use the chat. But if you want us to answer questions, it's easiest to put it in there so we can see it. And then for those of you who are on Facebook and Instagram, we'll try to catch your questions as well, but they tend to kind of float by. So we'll do the best that we can. So anyways, to get started, Nick, tell us a little bit about you and how you got to, the subject. So we're basically talking about regenerative agriculture and, how we can heal our biggest patient, which is the planet. So tell us a little bit what kind of fueled that passion.
Okay. It's a great place to start, Odette. Well done, you. My mother was a nurse, and she was very into nutrition and herbal medicine and homeopathy and ecology. Even this, I'm talking the 1970s. This is when health food, friends would call it death food. Health food was not a thing at that stage. My father was a doctor who's very interested in holistic medicine, and he did acupuncture and some nutrition and what have you. So that was where that's kind of where I came from. And then if I'm distracted because my machine is saying everything that I say with an echo. I'm hearing myself like I'm in a canyon, but it's okay. I'll just try and ignore it.
Could it be the ear things? Maybe
no, it's just my phone. I can't switch my phone off, so I'm going to
couldn't switch it down all the way either, but I don't hear it on my end.
Okay. Well, we'll be fine. There's more important things. I'm just going to switch my headphones up. There you go, so that I can hear less. Okay, so there you go. So that was I was medical, but also kind of a holistic background. I went to a Steiner school for 1 year when I was in to do my O levels when I was 16 or so.
For those who don't know what Steiner School is in the States, we call it the Waldorf School.
Waldorf, yeah, a Waldorf education.
Yeah.
So a lot of people thinking about the environment, thinking holistically, trying to minimize drugs, artificial, ultra-processed food. And so that was very influential. And then I went to vet college and I did 2 degrees at vet college. I did a BSc, Bachelor of Science in a range of pathological sciences, immunology, biochemistry, biological sciences, virology, a number of things like this. And then I qualified with my what you guys would call a DVM in 1992. I went into practice, and within a very short time in practice, I was slightly overwhelmed with the number of cases that I couldn't cure, I couldn't heal, and that you were just managing those cases. And so this made me look into homeopathy, and homeopathy led me into nutrition, and nutrition led me into acupuncture and herbal medicine. And then this is the background that brings me to the regenerative. So always I've been thinking in a global setting. I've always been thinking of, to heal the individual, you need to heal the family. To heal the family, you need to heal the environment. To heal the environment, you need to heal the world. Thinking in very broad terms. This is very obvious stuff now, but this is not how I was raised. So so I continued. I set up my own business, holisticvet.co.uk, in 1999, and started doing homeopathy, acupuncture, nutrition, herbal medicine. And nutrition became more and more and more an important thing. I'm a very keen advocate of raw food feeding, raw food and fresh food feeding. And that's really taken off in the last 10 years. And so I over the last few years, I got together with a couple of guys, Dr. Brendan Clark, Dr. Connor Brady, and we do a podcast, a Facebook Live every Tuesday night, 7 o'clock UK time, just to do a little plug there.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And we call ourselves the Raw Pet Medics. And we talk about food, we talk about nutrition, which is actually two different things, but we can talk about that. We talk about regenerative agriculture. We talk about medicine. We talk about conventional medicine, holistic medicine. We talk about all sorts of topics. And a number of years ago, Brendan came along and said, "Oh, this is a very interesting article." It was Nicolette Hahn-Nyman, who's written the book Defending Beef, and she was interviewed by Patrick. Can't remember his second name, but he runs the Sustainable Food Trust in the UK, and he was interviewing her, and it was just an absolute revelation. A little bit like when I discovered raw food feeding. Yeah, it was a, how did I not get this 20 years ago kind of feeling? And with homeopathy, how did I not realize that these subtle ways of treating why didn't I get this many years ago? And so the whole regenerative agriculture thing was suddenly there. It's really obvious, it's really positive, it's really healing, and it suddenly entered my mind like the St. Paul on the road to Damascus. It's just you get struck by this idea that there is something enormous out there that can be very beneficial to me and to people I talk to my family, to my environment. And it's fun, and it's fascinating, and it's such an enormous subject. This is one of the greatest things, like homeopathy, like nutrition, like all these things. It's so big that when you jump into the swimming pool, you'll never again touch the sides, because it's such an enormous subject. And so there you go. That's a little tiny slither of background. And I've done a lot of reading since then. I've just was saying to you before we came on that I just sat down and I just wanted to have all my references there in front of me. So I'm facing the window, and I've got beautiful ash trees and oak trees out in front of me. But blocking that is all the reading that I've done the last few years, and it runs to 3.5 pages of A4. We use A4 in this country, and I'm really proud that I've managed to kind of converse, as it were, with all these authors and be able to share a tiny little fraction of some of the ideas with you.
Mhm.
If anybody wants any references, then just let me know, or we can, if we mention anything, I'm sure you'll put them in the show notes
Yeah, definitely.
below. That would be great. But there you go. There's a little tiny fraction of where I find myself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. What I have found, and what kind of draws me to the whole regenerative agriculture is because I've never been one that tells stories really well. I don't beat around the bush. I go right to the, to the point. So if I tell a story, it's like, it started here and then this is the end of it. So I give it away right away. And I feel kind of the same with regenerative agriculture. It's like, okay, we have all these animals that are sick. We have all these people who are sick. We have this whole planet that's, not doing great. And if we want to fix it, we just go to regenerative agriculture and we can turn everything around. Everything can get better. Now, it may take a couple of generations to do so, but that's kind of where we need to go. And, as little humans, we tend to get so lost in the thick of it. We see allergies. So then we're like, okay, what shampoo can I use? Or we see a little bit of that and we completely lose that we're all connected and one with the environment, and to actually make that change and really heal, that we really need to go back to the root and what nourishes us, So that's kind of what draws me, is because it's like, okay, let's focus on that. And then we don't have to fiddle around with a bunch of supplements and God knows what else. Obviously, again, it's going to take a few years to turn things around, but that's where we need to focus. And so I'm really happy that you have all that information to share.
Yeah, I completely agree. I say it in slightly different ways, in that I say that I love simple ideas, and something like species appropriate nutrition is a really simple idea, but it has such far-reaching consequences and can heal so many animals. And so I totally get you when you say, you just like to go straight to the chase. And as you say, the beauty of regenerative agriculture is it's one concept which can feed us, clothe us, rebuild soil, which we've been doing our utmost to destroy for the last 200 years or so, and rebuild a planet that we can then pass on to the next and the next and the next and the next generations. David Montgomery, in his amazing book called Dirt, says that the last 20 of the most prominent civilizations, the Babylonians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Assyrians, you name it, every major civilization caused their own demise because they didn't look after soil. And we are doing, even though we have the forensic analysis of our history throughout time, throughout the planet, we're still making the same mistake that the Romans and the Babylonians did. We stopped looking at the soil because we took it for granted. And then when you look around, look at Easter Island. Why is Easter Island deserted? Because they didn't look after their soil. Then they didn't have any soil to grow, so everybody had to just migrate off Easter Island. That's the story there. And that's what's happening with our modern civilization. And so, and as you say, regenerative agriculture is one of the main ideas to help to heal the planet, the seas, the soil, society, and that's really exciting.
And air.
Water, yeah, absolutely. These things are so important.
Yeah, because I was rewatching a documentary I watched a few years ago called "The Need to Grow," And it's a really amazing documentary for those of you who are interested in diving in a little bit more, because not only does it kind of portray what's going on, but also how it gives a lot of hope. Because I think that in our society, we're so impacted by this negativity. It's like this negativity is everywhere, you know, it's all doom and gloom. And yes, we are living in a bit of a doom and gloom situation, you know, the way we've been dealing with the soil. You know, if right now it's estimated that we only have about 60 years of farmable soil left. So there's definitely some doom and gloom there. And if we don't get our act together and you know, start changing things, there's not going to be any humans left. But at the same time, it's also good to have the you know, have some hope. And I think that's what that very much brings.
I completely agree. I think that there's an awful lot of hope. I read last year a wonderful book here, Call of the Reed Warbler by Charles Massey.
Oh yeah, he's amazing,
and he says many things. It's an incredible tome, and if anybody's vaguely interested in this topic, then it's definitely worth reading. But he essentially says that there are many farmers, regenerative farmers in Australia, who are turning farms around from decline into regenerative, productive, biodiverse farms. And so if they can do it in Australia, which is very dry and very windy, and they get floods and fires and all sorts, if they can do it in Australia, then we can do it in Europe, because it's very temperate. And many parts of the USA are very temperate as well. So he's got a number of really fantastic quotes in his book, and I'd love to share one or two with you, if I may.
Yeah.
And this first one, at the beginning of chapter 2, from Wes Jackson, who is a very prominent agriculturalist in the States. And the quote from Wes Jackson is, "So destructive has the agricultural revolution been that, geologically speaking, it surely stands as the most significant and explosive event to appear on the face of the earth, changing the earth even faster than did the origin of life." Which is, you know, to kind of put things in context is really quite something. And then just finally, here's a wonderful quote in chapter 7 from Aldo Leopold, who was around many decades ago, and yet he was right on the money. And Aldo Leopold says, examine each question in terms of what is ethically and aesthetically right, as well as what is economically expedient. A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. Which I think really hits the nail on the head.
Yeah.
You know, the earth has been going on and flourishing and evolving for millions and millions of years, and then man comes along and there's massive destruction. And then just in the last 200 years, say, since the Industrial Revolution in Europe, we've really started destroying the world at an enormous pace. And now we realize it. Why don't we turn that thing around? That's my question. You know, there's a lot of people who want to and are doing some great work, but still the majority of people continue doing what they've always done, unfortunately.
Yeah. I do feel, though, that because we have such an acceleration of health, you know, of health problems, and obviously we're going to be out of food in 60 years if we don't turn this around. I think all of that is starting to really put things into motion. And with the whole pandemic that we've had as well, it's really starting to wake up people to start thinking a little bit. You know, all the people who have a lot of these pre-existing conditions that make, you know, any sort of viral infection a lot worse. You know, it's like everybody's starting to kind of change their thinking. And I think that we're kind of we're pushing the boulder up the hill, and I think we're going to be at the top very soon, where it then starts to roll down back to something good. But we're not quite up there, and there's still a bit of a question whether it's going to go up there. But I'm like an optimist.
Yeah, I'm an optimist as well, and I think that that we can potentially change things. There are many forces, you know, big industry, these corporations, they're making loads of money out of how things are at the moment. And they are very resistant, just like, you know, the petrol companies, when electric vehicles came along, they were very resistant. They managed to bury that technology for what, 50-70 years. And the tobacco companies, when they were making gazillions of dollars every year, they were very resistant to the findings from 1956, where they associated lung cancer with smoking. So industry, when they're making a lot of money, they are very keen to put the brakes on progress, put the brakes on ideas that will help most people but will diminish their revenue. And I think that those are, you know, everybody wants to live a good, happy life. Everybody wants their kids, if they have kids, to live a better life than them. This is just human nature. And yet we live in a world, in the Western world, where we are contributing to destruction, and we just kind of keep on doing that. And that's a real shame, I think.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, with all that you and I are doing, and other people, and all the people who are listening to us and using that and doing all the research on their own, because their vets don't have the answers, you know, for their animals, or they say there's nothing we can do, or, you know, it can't be cured, or whatever that may be. I think that people are waking up to the fact that they actually have more power themselves than they thought, you know, that they have to basically take responsibility for their lives and feel and be empowered. And also that their money makes a huge difference, because I think that if today nobody were to buy anything that has glyphosate sprayed on it, glyphosate would be gone. Like in a day, there would be no glyphosate left, because no store wants to sell Roundup if nobody, you know, or have Roundup in their store if nobody's buying it. So I think we can't underestimate the power of the people. And, you know, wasn't that the powers to the people?
Yeah. I think the power of the people is really massive, but I think people have got very used to stuff being cheap. Food, you know, the average food bill after the war in the UK was about 40%. So 40 cents of every dollar, if to put it in an American context, 40 cents of every dollar would go on food. Now that figure is about 8 cents in every dollar goes on food. Yeah, so we've had a 75% reduction in the cost of food to bring it, you know, in and put it in the fridge. And to suggest to anybody that rather than paying 8 cents in the dollar, that if we went to 12 cents in the dollar, we would improve animal welfare, and we would reduce the amount of toxin, for example, glyphosate, as you say, in the food. I don't think that would be a real vote winner. And this is the problem with the politicians. They have to try and steer a route forward where they're trying to do the best. Believe it or not, they're trying to do the best, but they have this wall of opposition, which is, you know, cost of living. And so it's very tricky. But, you know, the farmers are out there. They have to produce food. By using regenerative methods, it's a lot cheaper, because you're not using glyphosate, and you're not having to buy big John Deere tractors and Massey Ferguson tractors, and you're not having to fill them with diesel to plow those fields and what have you. So it's much cheaper. The profit actually is in most situations, the profit from farms that are using regenerative practices is bigger than when you're using these high input systems where you have to buy loads of fertilizer, buy loads of diesel, and buy loads of everything. So the profit margin in a regenerative capacity is greater. And many farmers in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in the States, they're saying, okay, I think more profit sounds really, really attractive. I'm going to go there with my farming. And at the same time, they are growing soil, and they are increasing biodiversity, and arguably they're working for themselves, but secondarily they're actually helping the planet. People are selfish beings. You read Harari, Sapiens is an amazing book. We are one of the most, well, we're definitely the most aggressive of all the Homo. We had Homo erectus, and then you have Homo neanderthalis, and what have you. Why did Homo sapiens, why did we prevail? Answer: because we were more aggressive than all the others, and so we wiped them out, and we are the descendants of the most aggressive humanoid of types, which is really unfortunate. And we also we're very selfish as a and I'm putting myself in the same. I'm not pointing any fingers. As a society, we're very selfish, and that's and that is the way it is. And I don't have an answer to that. But the first thing is to realize where you are before you actually can plot a journey to move forward.
And that makes sense. And the thing is, we're in such a stressful era right now that all that stress is causing a lot of it's catalyzing change, and adaptation. And so we're in a state of adaptation. It looks pretty ugly right now, but we are actually like at the cusp of something new, something that's never been here, and that I don't mean just from a soil perspective. You were talking about the social aspect of working together and supporting each other rather than fighting and being greedy and jealous and all of that stuff, which you have to be aware of what's going on there and kind of choose differently. But I think that it's such an extremely exciting time, and especially because we have such a powerful ally, which is the soil and all the microbes that are in there. So I don't know if you want to chat a little bit about that. I'm all about
soil.
Microbes.
Okay, I never thought, just to go back a little tiny bit, we would not be having this conversation 3 years ago. Okay, a lot has happened over the 3 years, a lot of bad stuff, but a lot of good stuff in that we know how to work Zoom, and we know how to talk to lots of people all in one go, which is amazing. But the fact that we're talking about soil, I'm getting excited about soil, is something that I never thought at all possible. I'm going to give you one amazing reference. There's a guy a lovely chirpy Aussie guy called Matthew Evans, and he's written a book called Soil. And anybody who would like a fairly light but fairly comprehensive guide, it's just a little paperback, it's really easy to read. Or if you're like me and you don't have time to do a lot of sit down reading, I do audio books. Okay, and so I have I can, if I don't know, I'm taking the dogs for a walk, or I'm mowing the lawn, or I'm taking the children to some event or something like that, on the way home, I can listen to my audiobooks. Okay, so that's how I get through a lot of literature. So Matthew Evans' Soil, wonderful introduction to soil. I could give you lots of others, but that would be one to start with. And basically, it's really, really simple. The soil we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about soil. Just to put things very simply. Okay. Soil it's an infinitely complex. Now, it's very simply speaking, you've got sand, you've got silt, and you've got humus, which is the kind of the leaves that have degraded down into this rich, crumbly, chocolate cakey type material. But within that structure, you've got viruses, you've got bacteria, you've got protozoa, you have got microfilaria with tiny little worms, that too small to see, which go around eating and doing their thing. You've got this amazing glue called glomulin, which is produced by root exudate. You've got a whole economy where roots make carboniferous kind of sugars, and they sell it to the bacteria, which are all around their roots, in exchange for magnesium and selenium and chromium and all the nutrients that are necessary for the plant above the surface, be it a tree or wheat or whatever, or grass, in order to grow. So you've got an economy there. You also have the hyphae, the fungal network, such that under every square meter of soil, there is arguably 40 kilometers, which would be what, I don't know, 32 miles of fungal hyphae.
Wow.
And so the problem, and that is a wonderful thing. And so every part of the soil is communicating with every other part of the soil. It's a living, dynamic thing. It's a bit like Avatar. I haven't seen Avatar, the second movie. I saw Avatar, the first movie, where they really opened this idea up that every tree is communicating under the ground with every other tree in the forest in Avatar. You remember that bit?
I mean, I've not seen it, but I've
you've not seen it?
Yeah.
It's worth seeing it from an ecological point of view. And that is not make-believe. That's how it happens. Every tree talks to every other tree, or the grass, they are communicating. Every grass plant is communicating with every other grass plant nearby through these fungal hyphae. There's a wonderful book by Merlin Sheldrake called Entangled Lives, which is a really, really wonderful introductory book to understand how incredibly important the fungi are. Because if you think about it, molds and fungi, if they weren't around, we would all be under about 30 meters of feces and dead leaves and because it hasn't, and dead bodies, because it hasn't been broken down. So they are wonderful recyclers, and they keep things clean and productive and producing compost and what have you. There really is an awful lot of wonderful processes going out there which are unbeknownst. There's many authors will say there's more going on in your farm beneath your feet than there is above the level of the soil. You've got trees, you've got grass, you've got sheep, you've got goats, you've got chickens, you've got running around above, but that is nothing compared to the amount of activity that's going on in healthy soil below the surface level of the soil.
Yeah, and I found it interesting that, in the Need to Grow, that documentary, they made the distinction between dirt and soil. Dirt just being like some dust, basically, that clumped together, and soil being this live organism, that had a ton of, earthworms and microbes and everything else. So what I think it's also important, when we talk about regenerative agriculture, how does soil become dirt?
Well, Montgomery is the guy to read for that. His book is called Dirt. But if you want to go the other direction, Gabe Brown has written Dirt to Soil. How do you turn a wasteland into a productive farm, a productive regenerative farm? And the answer is that you use multiple strains. You grow herbs, you grow root crops, you run chickens and goats and sheep and cattle, okay, and you integrate all of those things together, and very simply speaking, it's impossible at any kind of scale to regenerate soil without cattle and sheep, for example, okay, because they will take grass material which neither you nor I can eat, and they will turn it into food and fiber, for number one, and number two, they will deposit it and they will fertilize the soil in order to grow the soil. And thus you can grow, and the Australians in Charlie Massey's book are demonstrating in 3 years you can turn dirt into soil. He's got pictures in his book of adjoining farms. Looking down the fence line of, you've got Farmer Giles and Farmer Smith, okay. Farmer Smith is regenerative, Farmer Giles is not. He's still using glyphosate and nitrogen fertilizer and what have you. And on the fertilized soil, it's dirt all the way to the fence line, and then as soon as you get to the fence line, you've got grasses 2 feet high. And this is from no fertilizer, no pesticides. They're just using cattle and sheep in order to, and then they're mob grazing. They're not just turning them out and crossing their fingers. They're actually managing them very gently every single day so that they get maximum impact to the ground, and then they take them off that ground to allow the grass to make the most of the manure and the urine to generate carbon fixing grasses, which the animals 70, 90 days later come along and harvest and turn into food and fiber. So it's a well recognized form of agriculture that's been practiced in the States, in Canada, in Australia, New Zealand. It's tried and tested. It produces food and fiber for humans. It's using land that can't be used to grow crops. 60% of the land mass around the world is no good for monocrops like soya and wheat and corn. And so what are you going to do with it? The answer is you can generate grass. You can reverse desertification. Desertification is where you have a lovely grassy area, but because it's not being regenerated, all the goodness gets blown away, and all you're left with is dirt, is sand, is dust, which can take many years to regenerate. So there you go. It's an age-old idea of maintaining the quality and the fertility of soil in order to generate agriculture, put culture into human society, essentially. No agriculture, we're gone.
Dead.
We're gone.
I mean, what I find very, very inspiring is that it only takes 3 years to do that. So, we've taken a bit longer than that. Let's just say it started predominantly in the 1969-ish area, where glyphosate started to be sprayed everywhere and everything got a whole lot worse. I mean, I know it started way before that, but let's just say it accelerated. But in just 3 years of changing things around, we can basically heal the entire planet, right? I mean,
3 years is best case scenario when you've got really clever farmers and they've got they've got the infrastructure and what have you. But it is possible. We put a man on the moon, arguably, in 10 years. 61, I think. Kennedy said we're going to put a man on the moon, not because it's easy, because it's hard. And then 10 years later, arguably, we had a man on the moon. Okay, so and then there are numerous examples of when we have to do something, like the last 3 years, there is massive investment to make things change. And all we need to do is just kind of realize where we are and say, how can we change? There is a wonderful project called Project Drawdown, which is Paul Hawken, who's an American philosopher, entrepreneur, and he's started a wonderful project called Project Drawdown, and they've put together a top 100 ways to offset global warming. The top 80 methods are with known usable technologies that could be used tomorrow and are being used right now, and then the last 20 are emergent technologies that will come online very, very soon. But there's a lot that we can do to change, to help farmers, help people live in such a way that they are gradually improving every single day the environment, the quality of the air, the water, the food that they're eating, the health of the family, health of their animals. You know, there's a lot that one can do. I think the nature of human beings, though, is that they don't do much until they're really, really squeezed. We're unfortunately we're lazy, and I'm the same as everybody else there.
No pain, no gain, right?
No pain. Well, I think
applies.
If people are, if human beings are comfortable, if all animals, in fact, are comfortable, they have a massive tendency to not want to change. And at the moment, we are still pretty comfortable. And so we just think, we'll just give it another year, we'll give it another decade, we'll give it another generation and just see how we go. I think that we are being squeezed more than, Rachel Carson with Silent Spring. She wrote that in early 60s, I think. And, and she was saying, listen, guys, we're poisoning the planet. And people just said, well, we've got cheap burgers and, gasoline is really, really cheap. So let's just get on with it. Whereas now in Europe, fuel prices have gone up 3 times. Food prices are rising. And so we can actually feel the squeeze. You could say, arguably, we can feel the change in the weather. And therefore we can actually tangibly notice that our winters are much warmer than they were when I was a kid. I can feel it even within one generation. And so the way I look at it is that even if global warming does not exist, and I think it does, whether it's man generated, human generated or not, the world, we are insulting and polluting the world, and we can really clean up our act, whether there's human-made global warming or not. It's like having, my kids, their bedrooms are really, really messy. and they just kind of exist in these really, really messy rooms. But actually, in order to make that room productive, just some degree of cleaning up and cleaning your desk so you can do your homework and write poetry and whatever it is that you want to do, write music, ballet and whatever, then you need to kind of clear things up in order to move forward with love and beauty, as you mentioned. It's good. I think there's not enough love and beauty mentioned in these conversations, and I think these are very, very important. And I think these are being impacted by modern life. I think we buy too much stuff. I think we eat too much rubbish. I think we used air transport far too much. And I'm not saying let's go back to the medieval world. I love my laptop. I absolutely love my phone. I'm not saying that in the slightest. I'm just saying there needs to be an equilibrium somewhere where we get the best of both worlds. We get the best of nature, we get the best of technology, and there is a balance there such that we're all healthy and happy.
Yeah. So on that note, what do you see are easy things that we can implement today that aren't going to take up too much time or too much money?
Sure. Okay. So what I heard somebody say recently that what you do, because you've got to spend money to feed yourself, to feed your family, however you find yourself. So rather than buying this great array of potentially ultra processed foods, no, let's just talk about meat, for example. Rather than buying meat every single day of a poor quality, why not just maintain your budget for meat, but buy less meat, but of a much better quality? And therefore it's more nutritious and energy dense, and the welfare with which that the chicken, the sheep, the beef animal has been raised is so much more acceptable to us. Yeah. Therefore, that costs you absolutely nothing. You will eat less meat, but you will eat much better quality. And I think eating good quality, non-glyphosate raised vegetables is really, really good. I think monocultures like wheat and soya and corn, maize, I think they are far too dominant around the world, and I think we just need to start growing more vegetables. Growing vegetables in the garden. There you go. That costs nothing. You just buy some seeds and grow some vegetables. Okay. So people are going to say, how do you do it? Well, the answer is look at YouTube. That will teach you how to do it. There are many people who'll be able to teach you. You can go permaculture, or you can. It's not complicated. Yeah. Mother Nature's been doing it for what, 1 billion years. You could start with just if you're in an apartment and you've got no garden, just with a window box, you can start growing some chilies, for example. You can start growing some herbs, for example. It's very easy. Doesn't really cost very much at all. And I think that is something you could do. I think one of the most important things, though, is to learn, is to question the way things are in the world around you, and just say, is this the best thing? Is this sustainable for the future? Is there anything I can do? I hate preaching, and I hope I don't sound too preachy here. I am far from imperfect, but
you're far from imperfect.
I'm far from imperfect. Okay. Sorry. I meant the opposite of that. I'm far from perfect. I am very imperfect.
You're very perfect, just the way
Bless
you are.
You. Yeah. Bless you. Thank you very much, Odette. I think you're the same. But
we all are.
What I'm saying, we are perfect the way we are. But I think that our relationships can improve. Our relationships with nature, with food, with the farmer down the road. Get to know your local farmer. This is what Joel Salatin says. Do you know the person who is feeding you? No, you don't, because the food that arrives on your plate has probably traveled 1,500 kilometers in order to arrive on your plate. Whereas if you bought it from Farmer Jones down the road, you'd be supporting the local economy. You would trust the person who is providing your food. They would be obliged to do their best to give you the best quality food so that you came back to get it from them. And so there is a very positive economy that is, just on our doorstep. We like convenience. We have been weaned onto convenience. And I think real life is not quite as convenient as we have been led to believe. And I think to challenge that idea of super, super, super convenience is a really good idea. And also just to talk to your friends and just say, what do you think is a sustainable way of shopping, of using your garden, of your relationship with meat? I think that those are really, really useful conversations to have. What do you think, Odette?
Yeah,
What do you think?
I mean, there are definitely a lot of things that can be done more sustainably, like not using plastic containers, get glass containers and just wash them and reuse them. All of these plastic Ziploc bags, really, do we need to put food in there? No, we can just put it in actual reusable containers, for example.
Yeah.
So there are small little things that we can do and that don't take all that much, There's less garbage to take out then, so you save on that end, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So there are a lot of little things. And, you mentioned, especially with the meat, buying meat that is sustainably farmed, where they had a good life, and where, you mentioned how these grazing animals are important for the soil to regenerate that soil. That kind of brings me to the fact that there's so much veganism going on, and I'm not trying to judge or anything, but that way we can also move away from the mass production and the mass accumulation of cows, and like 1 acre, for example, that would then release more greenhouse gases, basically, and cause more deterioration of things. So if we were to then spread them out more, then they would actually be beneficial rather than damaging, in that sense. So
I totally agree. I think there's somebody's just trying to ring me there. I'm just going to put them off for a second. So Odette, you were just saying about veganism, and I just a couple of things that I'd like to say about veganism is, if you have taken if veganism just suits you and you have chosen to do it and you've looked at the alternatives and you're fully informed, then I support you. Absolutely. I was speaking to somebody recently who said, when I eat meat, I can hear the death cries of the animals who provided that meat. And I said to her, I completely support your position to be a vegan in that respect. What I do have a problem with, and all my reading suggests that being vegan does not automatically give you better health than a well-informed omnivore. And also that veganism, I truly believe, through my reading, through my conversations, I truly believe that it is not the answer to save the planet. Even vegan food, there is death involved in raising pea protein. There is death involved in growing maize and corn or soya. And so the idea that veganism doesn't involve killing doesn't work. The idea that vegetarianism doesn't involve killing, for example, eggs, what happens to all the male chicks? All the females go to the hen house so that they can produce eggs. And with milk, if a vegetarian eats milk, totally great. But what happens to all the boy bull calves? The female calves can become milk animals, okay, whether you agree with it or not, that's what usually happens. But the boy calves, okay, they would either be killed immediately on farm, or they would be grown for beef and then slaughtered, hopefully with compassion and respect. But therefore, eating involves killing. You remember the Smiths in the 80s, they had an album called Meat is Murder. And I would go a little bit further than that, and I would say eating is murder. Just living, even a vegan, if they took 1 second to look at the nature of the food that's on their plate, it does involve death somewhere along the line. This is very controversial, and I'm sure all the vegans who are watching this absolutely hate me right now, and that is your prerogative, and I completely support you. If you want to hate me, that's okay, but please do your homework. There's a couple of books that I would suggest. One is The Vegetarian Myth by Lierre Keith. Lierre sounds like Pierre, but with an L. She's written a wonderful book, The Vegetarian Myth. She was a 30-year vegan, and she got really ill, and so she did a lot of research to find out what she should be doing. The other book is by Jane Buxton. I'm just going to look up here because I'm just in the middle of it right now. It's called The Great Plant-Based Con. Okay, again, if you choose from ethical reasons to be a vegan, great. But I don't think it will save the planet, and I don't think you're going to be any healthier. Okay, and if anybody has evidence to suggest that you will be healthier or it will save the planet, then please, I'd be really, really pleased to look at that evidence.
Yeah, and it's well said. And I think that, all extremes, and we've practiced extremes pretty extremely recently.
Yeah.
We have this war on everything. We have the war on microbes, like we have a war on showing your face. We're basically so disconnected from nature and from the cycle of life. And it's Joel, what's his last name? Salinger?
Joel Salatin. Joel Salatin.
Yeah, so he talks about that because he does a lot of regenerative farming and holistic keeping of his animals and all of that. So he lectures widely. You can also find YouTube videos from him. But he says that we are, and we see it. I mean, we're so disconnected from everything. We're so afraid of nature that we've kind of shielded ourselves off of it and tried to fight it. And what's happened? We've only gotten a lot more sick in the process. We've lost a lot. We've lost 50% of diversity of the microbes in the world. We've lost, we have an increase in ticks. Well, why do we have more ticks? Well, because they're good at surviving, right? And we've kind of narrowed down or killed off the animals that would eat those ticks, like the birds. I don't know. I'm sure they probably eat some ticks here and there. Well, guinea hens, for example. So we've created such imbalance that, now we have to be scared in some way, because we have weakened ourselves and strengthened the strong. And so, as you mentioned earlier, we're being squeezed like crazy. And so, it's really important that we turn things around. And that's why I post pictures of me in bathrooms, for human fecal transplant, because it floats all around when somebody flushes, right?
Yeah.
We need to make friends. We need to stop being so sterile and over clean everything, and, and just kind of go back into that cycle of nature and go touch some dirt, and plant things and regenerate.
Totally agree. I mean, what you're describing is the hygiene hypothesis. Because so when I was growing up in the 70s, it was thought that germs were the enemy. And so you had loads of bleach, and you had the burgeoning antibiotic industries, and everybody honestly thought that infection was going to be a thing of the past. But actually, what's happened is that whenever you hit anything in Mother Nature with overwhelming force, Mother Nature finds a way around it. For example, glyphosate. You mentioned glyphosate. You spray glyphosate on weeds, and originally they all died. Now, glyphosate resistant weeds are becoming more and more and more of a thing, and that is actually inevitable. Since the 30s, we've invented probably 60 or so new types of antibiotic. All of them within about 5 years on average will develop resistance. The bugs that they are designed to kill will become resistant. You release rabbits into Australia to, I don't know, eat down the grasses, or whatever the reason was that they introduced it. And then, 20 years later, you've got a plague of rabbits. You then introduce myxomatosis to knock out all the rabbits. And then 20 years later, you've got myxomatosis resistant rabbits. It always happens. Okay, I'll give you 1,000 examples like that. But using overwhelming force with nature, whereas if you use nature against itself, somebody mentioned, just put a comment about possums eat ticks. So if you create an environment where possums are in balance with the other elements of nature, then that's going to take your tick burden down. Also, if you stop using the brevectos, the next guards of this world, which kill among other things ticks, then you will not. Yeah, quite. I didn't even script that. You will not put this overwhelming force, which will then select for brevecto isoxazolines products. Isoxazolines resistant bacteria. It makes great business sense to do this, because then you've always got a thing. But from an environmental point of view, it's disaster. Rachel Carson told us about this a very, very, very long time ago.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that we probably need and can change easily-ish is that we need to be a bit more humble. That we eat a little bit of humble pie, and instead of thinking that we know everything and that we want to fix everything, that we just take a bit of a step back and sort of start to look around. Okay, so this tree out there is living really well among other trees, and how is that? What does it take for that to happen? And I think that as humans, we are right now, at least a lot of us, are in such survival mode that we just go from one knee-jerk reaction to another, instead of taking a breath and looking at, for example, our animals. Well, why are there skin issues? Why do they have GI, recurrent GI issues? Why do they have IBD? Are they having a deficiency of metronidazole? Or is it possible that we've moved them so far away from what nature provided for them to be healthy, that they just can't be healthy in that environment? So it's like we just need to start asking questions, because I think as humans, because we have such a big brain and there's so much information everywhere, we forget to ask questions. We go right to, okay, I'm going to do this. My dog can't get on the couch, I'm going to go get a joint supplement. It's like this knee jerk where there's no space in between to ask any questions. So I think a little breathing and humility and just sitting back and allowing, I think.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, there's a wonderful comparison between the soil microbiome and the gut microbiome. When the soil is allowed and encouraged to be the best soil it can possibly be, with the best diversity and stability, it will actually feed into the best microbiome. So how do you improve your own microbiome? The answer is you buy your food from farms that are improving the soil microbiome, that you get out into the garden and you interact with the ultimate microbiome, which is the soil. And there is a two-way conversation between your microbiome and the soil microbiome, and that's, I think, is a wonderful thing. It's a very obvious thing when you think about it, but it's it makes so much sense that it's something to strive for, and it's really, really simple, isn't it? It's, as you say, don't live in a sterile environment. It's completely unnatural for human beings to live in a sterile environment.
Yeah, I mean, I was just listening to a podcast the other day where a gastroenterologist was talking about cancer and the microbiome, and he said that they have discovered that all cancers have their own microbiome as well. And the more diverse that microbiome is, the less likely it was that the people would be dying of it, and the more receptive to therapy they would be as well. I mean, the more successful they would be. So I think it's just incredible. And again, back to humility, we just don't know much as humans. We think we do, but we don't really have much of a clue. And that's kind of a space we need to get into, because then things can show up to give us a clue.
I think we really, really know that we don't know very much about the human microbiome, or anybody's microbiome. Come to that, even a seed, even a little sesame seed has its own microbiome, and that will influence how it grows, which is amazing and slightly mind-blowing, in fact. So and the microbiome, like I say, we are nowhere near understanding the soil microbiome, even though we've been studying it for 400 or more years. But this is wonderful. Some people say we know more about the Mariana Trench than we do about the soil that's in the garden.
Right.
So right. I really like your idea of humility, and just saying, as a scientist, being a humble, curious child, looking at, thinking about, experiencing, and you respectfully utilizing what you find in the environment, be it plant material, be it animal material, live, beautiful, vibrant animals. There's a whole world out there of phenomena that we're only just beginning to recognize. And that is a brave new world, and it is a wonderful, positive place to think about what does the future hold. The future can hold excitement, health, beauty, truth, all things good. And it is within our grasp. It is definitely within our grasp, if we choose to grasp that future.
Yeah, very well said, because I was going to sort of close up with the fact that we need to also let our imagination come back to life, because I've done quite a few interviews with pet parents recently, and I always ask them, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it over your situation, what would life look like in 6 months? And to be honest with you, I could not get much answers from people. They would say, well, I would feel a little relieved. And then they go right back into what's not working and how scared they are and all of that. So I feel like we've also lost that ability to even go beyond what is scaring us and is causing us pain, to just imagine something better, and to imagine not being where in that space. And I think that is something that maybe we can kind of end with. I don't know if you have any, what do you imagine for this?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask you, Odette, I was going to say to you, okay, I'll give you the two first things that come to mind. And that will be straight off the top of my head. So what two things would I change now? If I could change anything to improve my life or everything in 6 months' time? Is that the question?
Yeah, or what would life look like in 6
Uh-huh.
months, or like a 10 years or something? I mean, what do you see for the future?
Uh-huh.
You imagine the future. What does that future look like
I
on all levels? No,
yeah.
no
Okay. Okay.
restrictions. Dream, just dream
Okay.
big. That's what I.
Okay. I'm going to narrow it. I'm just going to look at food because I'm obsessed with food, and food and regen agriculture tie in together. Massive, are almost one and the same thing. So, from a food point of view, I just think the government should incentivize regenerative agriculture. I don't know why they wouldn't, because it's profitable.
Yeah.
And they should de-incentivize ultra processed food by putting enormous taxes on it, for example. Okay, so that would be number one, would be to change the balance of incentives from the government such that people were inclined to eat really, really good quality food. Yeah, i.e. good quality food became cheap, and food that was bad for you became really expensive. Now, isn't that a logical position to take?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what would
Unless
that look
you're
like?
making
Right.
ultra processed food. Yeah, Nestle and Unilever and all these people. Yeah. Okay. So that's number one.
What would that look like, though?
What would it look like?
Yeah.
It
What would
means
life look like? What would the planet look like if that were to happen? What would our health look like? What would the result of that be?
that would be that every human being would be healthier because they would be eating a lot more healthy food. If they're healthier, they're going to be happier. And if they're happier, then I think just human beings, communities, because we're tribal beings, I think we would be happier. And my second one would be food waste. If I could eliminate, so depending on who you read, it's either 40% of everything that comes off the farm, or not even comes off the farm, is everything that's grown on a farm is wasted. Yeah, 40 to 50% of everything that's grown, either that's beef animal or a carrot, 50% is wasted. If I could do anything, I would end food waste, because at the moment we're feeding 7.9, maybe 8 billion people with 50% food waste. If we eliminated food waste, then arguably we would be able to feed 16 billion. Now, I'm not suggesting 16 billion people on the planet is a great idea, but that whole idea about, oh my God, we can't feed the world. Let's feed the world. Let's feed the world with great food, with animal food, just a little bit of really great quality, lots of veggies, no more monocrops or very few monocrops. And if I could magic zero waste, I would magic zero waste.
I love that. I love that. What I would like, or what I would see, would be a lot of joy, grace, where people feel like they're supported through each other, life in general, where they don't feel, where everybody feels like they have enough of everything, where they learn, where they embrace each other just the way we are, no matter how we are. And then nature would just be flourishing. Deserts would turn green. Animals would be roaming around freely and happy. And same with humans, children and humans, just be outside more, living outside, indoor, outdoor, just being integrated in nature, and homes looking probably nothing that I can picture, but not made out of wood,
synthetic materials
formaldehyde in it, and just like some material that is kind of blends with the environment and just absolute beauty. That's what I picture.
I think, but you know what? I think that's, some people may be listening to this and saying that's all very well, but that sounds a little bit, pie in the sky. I'm saying, if we went down a regenerative road, what you describe is not impossible. Everybody gets their food, their veggies, and their meat, quality meat, from the local farmer. The local farmer has pigs and chickens and rabbits and grows veggies and grows wood and what have you. Everything you buy is within 10 miles or so from your home. You don't really need a petrol car because you don't do that many journeys. You can travel wherever you like. I think it's important not to restrict communication, not to restrict travel. That those things which damage the planet, genuinely damage the planet, they are appropriately disincentivized, and things that heal the planet are encouraged. And I think that what you describe will just come out of that. So I think it's doable. I think it's doable. And if you want like one final word, I think regenerative agriculture, if anybody watching is not familiar with regenerative agriculture, it really is the positive concept of the future. And it is just one concept, and it will solve a whole slew of problems if we can embrace the concepts and the ideas that are available through regenerative agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And thank you so much for sharing all that and sharing your passion and educating people and spreading the word, because that is so important to do. And I'm definitely going to need that list of your 33-page book list.
Odette, you're really welcome. Thank you so much. It's all this stuff is just bubbling out. I very rarely get the opportunity to just really go deep on this stuff. So thank you very, very much indeed. I was going to say something then, but it's gone.
I feel like we only touched the surface, so
we have only just started. This is the first page of the book.
A little. I appreciate that. But anyways, I interrupted you. Sorry about that.
No, we've only just started. Only just started, and I hope that it might inspire, or even just to intrigue. I'd be very happy if people thought, that's an interesting concept, or just the fact if people just thought it's not all doom and gloom. Let's jump into some regenerative agriculture and see if they really think that can be part of the solution.
And again, that's why we need to kind of dream and allow ourselves to dream, because kids dream, right? And their dreams come through. They dream about getting a bicycle from Santa. Well, Santa brings a bicycle, right? So we need to become a little more childlike that way and allow ourselves to dream, because then things can happen.
A very, very great man in Washington once said, "I have a dream."
Yeah, I have a dream. You have a dream. Everyone has a dream. Yeah. And anyways, thank you everyone who's tuned in today as well. And thank you for, bringing your dreams, even though we haven't asked you to express them or share them, but I know that they're there. And thanks for being here and for listening and for spreading the word about regenerative agriculture and supporting the farmers and also seeing the bigger picture, which I think that's what it takes to be here as well, is to be open to that. So thank you all for everything that you do on your smaller scale, which is really huge in my book. And thank you, Nick, for being here and for sharing. I so appreciate you.
Odette, keep up the good work. It's great. It's an honor to share some thoughts with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Bye, everyone. Have a nice rest of your Sunday.